This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
You know, it's funny. Just this past week, my buddy, my cousin, on our group me chat, he's sitting there, and amidst, the 2-0 start, and, the cornbread and the Kool-Aid, it isn't going too far, but we're kind of feeling ourselves. We're enjoying the momentum. He decides out of the blue to say, let's recap the 10 worst moments, the 10, most what the heck, unfortunate moments in Lions history. This is on our group me chat. And so people are talking about the Calvin Johnson rule, the picked up flag, taking the win in overtime. And I told him, wait, no, I'm not participating in this. I'm not participating in this negativity. And lo and behold, Sunday afternoon happens and we have the new rule, the Golden Flippin' Tate rule. It's the Hindsight 20 podcast. I'm your host, Jerry Mallory. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. As always, a proud member of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network and a proud member of prideofdetroit.com. So it happened, okay? And I've got a million thoughts. I've gone through all the emotions, similar to when someone, loses a loved one almost. The anger, the denial, the acceptance. I've played the moral victory role now. It's coming and going in waves. Now I'm on the moral victory is for losers, okay? Moral victories are for Jacksonville Jaguars and for Chicago Bears fans. It should not be for the Lions. So I've got a wave of emotions. I don't have notes. And I'm just sitting here, and for the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about this game. And I'll give you some of the thoughts I had previously, some of the thoughts I have now, and we will look ahead a little bit to the game I want to say the Metrodome, but the game in Minnesota against the Vikings. Now, this was supposed to be a 2-for-1, right? You get the I'm all over the place, okay? You get the Monday Night Football game against the Giants. You get to talk about that. You get to talk about the Atlanta Falcons because of the Monday night game and us recording and delivering to you on Mondays. But no one wants to talk about Monday Night Football, all right? It came, it went. It would have been great if the scheduling would have allowed me to talk about that game on Monday, but the game hadn't happened yet. The podcast rolls out. We move on, all right? We win that game. It's cool. It puts us at 2-0. It's a road victory. I don't care if the Giants go 0-16, okay, and they're 0-3 right now. I don't care. It's a road win, and I'm happy about it. I'll take it. And that's all we're going to talk about for that one. So this is the least 2-for-1 podcast you're ever going to get because it's really 1-for-1. We're talking about Atlanta versus Detroit, and so we gotta go to the end. We're going to talk about Caldwell's contract. We're going to talk about some of the other reasons why we lost, but we got to talk about the referee situation. We got to talk about the overturned touchdown, the 10-second runoff. This is one of I think this one is worse than the pass interference. This one is versus the Cowboys in the playoffs. This is worse than the Calvin Johnson rule. Okay. This one is the worst because it's kind of the rule. And this rule is absolutely ridiculous. That's to me why this one is kind of worse. Additionally, this one is one of the worst because those other things were subjective. Okay. If it's a catch, the process, it's subjective. You ask one person, they'll say it wasn't a catch. You ask this person, mostly in Detroit, you'll say it was a catch. Okay, those things were subjective. Even if you think something is a pass interference or not, again, it's subjective. This one is plain and simple. This is what happened. There was a call by the referees, a touchdown. That would stop the clock. They look at it again. They say, you know what? Upon further review, we were wrong. But now we're going to penalize the Lions. Now we're going to give them a 10-second runoff. Let's talk about the 10-second runoff rule. Let's talk about why it exists and why next year we'll get a revision to the 10-second rule, despite the fact that the revision doesn't apply to the game, the season, the 2-1 instead of 3-0 start. The revision will be as follows. The 10-second rule only applies to a team if they do something wrong, because the Lions did absolutely nothing wrong. wrong. That's the problem. I don't care if they applied the rule correctly. The rule is put in place for a penalty by the offensive team and time is a factor, a penalty by the defensive team if time is a factor. Someone gets hurt, maybe it's a fake injury, who knows? But if they get hurt and time is a factor and you don't have a timeout, you get this penalty. Okay, the 10-second runoff is to penalize the team that needs time and doesn't have timeouts. Why is there a penalty? Because they did something wrong. So I don't care if they applied the rule correctly. The rule is jacked up if they applied it correctly. And I'm pretty convinced they don't even have anything in the rule book saying, well, if the referees look at the play, which stops the ball, and then they decide it was the wrong call, that then you still run 10 seconds off. Show me that in your book. Because I guarantee you that the only thing they talk about is in the event of the team concerned with time doing something wrong is their 10 seconds taken off the clock. And that was not the case. The Lions did absolutely nothing wrong. They were given a touchdown. It was reviewed. The referees decided that they were wrong. And now the Lions have to blow 10 seconds. Let's talk about this other thing too. And I don't know if Dennis 50 whoever it was, I think it was him, I don't know or care, but on 97.1 saying how there was no way they could have got another playoff. Well, guess what? That would have been determined had they ruled him down at the 1. I'm of the opinion that they could have gotten another playoff with 8 seconds to go on the 1-yard line. It's not like they threw a 30-yard pass that was completed and they would have had to run up the field 30 yards to run the play. It was a play at the 1-yard line that was complete. You get up, you hurry up, and you run that other play. I'm of the opinion that they could have hiked the ball with 1 or dare I say even 2 seconds left. And I say that because I've seen the Lions in this hurry up mode get plays off. We take you no further than last year against Minnesota, where they're running down the field without time, and then with like 7 seconds or so, get a pass completed, line up, get in position, no false start to spike the ball. Matt Prater with a 58-yard field goal, and they force overtime. We've seen them do it time and again, having to run the distance of the field. They did it against the Dallas Cowboys in the infamous Matt Stafford quarterback keep for a touchdown. I've seen them do it before, and especially being at the 1-yard line. But guess what? Whether they could have or couldn't have, they should have been allowed the opportunity to do it or not do it. I would have been fine. If they ruled him down at the 1, I would not be sitting here complaining. Now, I feel as though whatever the ruling was, it probably would have to stay that way. If they ruled him down at the 1, looking at that replay, maybe he was. Now, I do take a little bit of umbrage because there was some questions as to, he was touched and then he didn't have possession yet, but by the time he had possession, he wasn't touched, the knee was down, and then he rolled into the end zone. I mean, I really do feel as though it was not conclusive evidence to overturn. So whatever the call was, it should have stayed that way. All right. Now that's one bone to pick. That, there's all these replays. You have this whole thing of, well, okay, look at the replay then. When his knee touched, if you're saying he's down, the knee touched with 11 seconds, meaning we had 1 second left. It's hard enough doing this show after a game. I was there. If you've heard my voice before, I'm not this raspy, okay? I sound like, I don't know, Whoopi Goldberg or something. I know, great parallel, right? It's hard enough doing the show after a game like that. When you're sick of football and just, for the moment, temporarily, I'm a little sick of football right now with all the screaming and excitement. And now I'm screaming on here because I'm mad. I'm pissed. And all the, calm down last year, everything that bothered me is coming back up. But, there's nothing anyone can say that can get me off of this fact with this 10-second trying to keep my composure. There's nothing that can get me off the simple fact of the 10-second runoff rule was designed, the reason for it, the spirit of it, it was created to do the following: to penalize a team without timeouts when they've done something bad, and time is a factor. So we're missing one key component. We're missing the key component in this situation. The Lions did absolutely nothing wrong. They were given the touchdown. It was reviewed. The referees decided to change it. How can you take 10 seconds off the Lions for completing a pass because they didn't get in the end zone? Absolutely ridiculous. I can go on and on about this. And I will. We're going to be talking about this. We'll keep it going. It was a weird game as a whole. Again, not watching it on TV where you get like the benefit of replays and different things. Now, here's two random things. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I asked my Pride Detroit buddies, did these two things really happen? Now, the one, I'm pretty sure, and this was earlier in the game, where a defensive holding penalty was a 10-yard penalty on the Lions instead of 5 yards. I'm not mentioning these things as like other reasons why we lost, because we lost in addition to the referee screwing up a lot of, we lost in addition to the referee screwing up because of other things, not these two plays, not these two boneheaded referee situations, but I'm just adding them to the craziness of the game. I'm pretty sure that's happened. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a 10-yard instead of a 5-yard defensive holding penalty. And then this one's real crazy, man. I'm pretty sure, and there was a couple of people in the stands with me that saw this as well. It's like, the Falcons got 5 downs on one of these plays in the second half. They ended up kicking the field goal. They got a holding penalty. It was 1st and 20. They had 3 plays. They ended up resulting in like 13 yards. And so instead of it being 4th and 7, it ended up being 3rd and 7. Again, I saw 2 3rd and 7s. Now, the scoreboard said that. I know the scoreboard sometimes at Ford Field, or even if you watch it on Fox, can be wrong. But in addition to the scoreboard saying 3rd and 7 and us, committing that, the defensive stop, I'm counting the downs myself. If I'm wrong on it, I'm wrong. But it just speaks to the weirdness of the game. It just adds to the frustration. There's so many things and aspects about this no call that really just it really ticks me off. They're not really talking about it from a media standpoint. They're not really. Oh, there was a questionable. It's not. They're acting like it's not a big deal. But if it was the Patriots or the Packers, it would be a big deal. And dig this, if it was the Patriots or the Packers, I take that back. It wouldn't be a big deal because they wouldn't have called that play back. It's pretty bad. It's like my buddy put it in the meme. He had a meme with the referee's face. He said, since the call affects the Lions' record, by rule, the Lions lose. And that's kind of just like where we're sitting at and how we're feeling at the moment. You got to be PC. You can't say too much if you're a player. And as a player, you're looking at, hey, we did this and we did that wrong as to reasons why we lost instead of that one play. Stafford, like he put it, and he didn't have his best game, but he did enough. He did enough to win the game, in my opinion. But like he said, hey, I could have threw it a little bit better. It was tight coverage, though. I've screamed enough. We're going to get through the rest of this podcast civilly, cordially, like we have some common sense. But who's to say those emotions, those anger points, those anger moments might not come right back up. I'll tell you this. We're going to take a break. I need one. I need a sip of water because my voice is going by the wayside as we speak. We got about 15 minutes left on this podcast, and between all the screaming that I did, which causes the Whoopi Goldberg or hoarse voice, and then the screaming I'm doing now, and I try to do the show like one take, 30 minutes, straight talking. It's just me. It's a lot of talking. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about other aspects of the game. We'll talk about Jim Caldwell's contract, and then we'll talk about looking ahead at Minnesota. So stick around, stay right here for hopefully a more controlled, as passionate, but more controlled and milder version of Jerry Mallory and the Hindsight 20 podcast.
Jello Beats, holla at me.
All right, we're back on the Hindsight 20. Thanks for sticking around. Let's talk about the Lions after these 3 games. 2-0 start. It's like it looks good, but the Giants and the Cardinals, how are they? Are they any good? Or are these quality wins, So this is the thing you heard all week, whether I'm at work, whether it's on the radio, whether it's on Group Me with my friends, neighbors, you name it. This is the real test. The Atlanta Falcons are the real test because the Falcons are good. They're legit. They don't have a Super Bowl hangover. They look like a legit team. This would be the test. And I kept hearing, hey, if we win, we're legit. Even if we keep it close and keep it respectable, we are legit. And to an extent, I do agree with that, okay? Although, the Bears kept it close with them as well. Being at home, you always have a shot. But there was some truth to those statements. And despite the win, or rather the loss, it's 2-1. There's no moral victories, all right? Like I said, I think moral victories are for your Jacksonville Jaguars. Moral victories are for your your 49ers, hey, we didn't beat the Carolina Panthers, but they only scored 9 points. That's for loser teams. I'm off that. This ain't 2008. I'm over the moral victory thing. But I will say this game did give us a nice bit of information on the Lions, where they are, where they stand. And this whole week, with the NFL and the NFC, we've been given more information. We got information on, the schedule. It looked so tough early on, but you got teams like the Steelers looking bad on the road. The Bengals, they look kind of good in Lambeau, but they're 0-3 now, right? These are supposed to be tough games that would be hard to win. Tampa Bay not looking as good as we thought, right? Are they 0-2 now? I believe so. Breeze and the Saints won, but they hadn't looked too great those first 2 weeks. We're getting more information. So this schedule, we're looking at these games down the road, like, oh, this is going to be a tough game. That's going to be a tough game. Some of these games aren't as tough as we thought. Then the information we got for the Lions is, yes, we did keep it close. We did hang with them, and some will feel as though we bested the Falcons with a little fluky situation at the end. No matter how you slice it, we hung with a very good team. And if you're looking at the scope of the NFC, Packers, although with the comeback win, they were in a knockdown, drag-out fight at home against what we think is a pretty crappy Cincinnati Bengals team. The Seahawks, they've been looking pretty rough. Just watch the Tennessee Titans gash them. I'm naming some of the top contenders, all right? The supposed top contenders in the NFC. Dallas still looks good. They'll be playing a little bit later. We're recording this Sunday afternoon. We talked about Seattle. And then Atlanta, who's probably still the front runner, knockdown, drag-out fight. They gave us a haymaker, and it almost wasn't enough even. And so the information that we have talking about the Lions, 2 wins, 1 on the road, and then hanging with Atlanta, this team, I do have more confidence in, much more than I did. And I started off with that 8-8. My win index is Windex. You can always call it. You can call it. Let's call the win index a Windex. Very good glass cleaning product. It has improved. I could definitely see 10 wins now. The way they played Atlanta, because you look at the Vikings, it's going to be a good match. Man, Case Keenum looked like Dante Culpepper with all those yards. And it's a road game. It's going to be hard, but they're beatable. Then you've got the Panthers who look beatable. You've got the Saints who look beatable. So I'm feeling this schedule a lot more, how the Lions stack up against some of these teams that we thought would be difficult to maybe even pencil in losses. So the information that we received is pretty good. I'll just wrap it up in saying the slate of the NFC looks manageable. And I don't want to jump the gun. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but looking at the way the Lions played, what we think is the class of the NFC, looking at the Packers struggles, looking at the Seahawks struggles, I'll temper my expectations, but more information I've gotten over these last 3 weeks, the more I feel like the Lions could be, dare I say, a contender for the NFC, for the division, a home playoff game, a playoff win. All those things seem much more in the realm of possibility now than it may have 2 weeks ago when the season was just beginning. And I'll leave it at that. Let's talk about a few aspects of this game, though, and then we'll move ahead and look at the Minnesota Vikings. 2 things that, for me, that I really appreciate is Matt Stafford and Matt Prater, okay? Now, I'm a firm believer of the do theory. No matter how good you are at something, if someone hits 10 shots in a row, I'm expecting shot 11 to miss. And if 11 doesn't miss, I'm expecting 12. Like, eventually, the ball drops, okay? No matter how much you do something, eventually, you know what I mean? I'm one of those type of guys. And so, Prater, with these 50-yard field goals, I'm expecting every next one to be a miss, only because eventually he has to miss a 50-plus yard field goal, right? It's funny. I was sitting behind a guy that's originally from Denver. He was decked out in Lions gear and rooting for the Lions. He said, I'm from Denver. He said, man, one of the biggest mistakes we've made in the last 4 or 5 years, okay, was letting go of Matt Prater. And I couldn't agree with him more. Number one, because I'm not following the Broncos transactions that closely. So, I know they let go of Prater. I know, what I mean? So I'm going to agree because I don't have a ton of information, but I'm also going to agree because whereas Brian McAnus has struggled, man, Prater, it's phenomenal. I think we're not talking about it enough. We're taking 50-yard field goals for granted. All right. In a 32-team league, I'm guaranteeing you 27 or more teams, probably 28, 29 teams, aside from maybe us and the Baltimore Ravens. When it's a lineup and it's a 50-plus yard field goal, it's panic city, all right? The sphincter is tightening up because these are far from gimmies. These things are hit at a higher rate than they have been because kickers are better than they were. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'll guarantee you that the rate is probably in the 50s to maybe 60s. Prater, 11 straight 50-plus field goal. That is insane. Don't overlook that. Stafford, no matter how, inconsistent he was, because he let some passes on the table. He let some things, he left some points on the board himself, all right? But on the 11-yard line, needing to get in the end zone, he pretty much did what he had to do with the legs, with the passing, with the smarts. You would think, okay, he won't get a game-winning drive. He can't do another one. Eventually, he has to. And in my opinion, he got another one. Okay, there was some questions, or let's say he trended that way. At the very least, he didn't get the opportunity. He didn't get that last play. But based on the track record, it's like, I like my odds of him getting that last play that he so deserved. It's amazing what these guys have done, all right? And it's not to be overlooked. Sticking on special teams, Agnew looked good last week with the punt return. Horrible taking that one kick off the end zone. He got benched. TJ Jones comes in. Golden Tate comes in. We got to figure that out. We got to figure that thing out. The left side of the line looked bad. Greg Robinson didn't look good at all this week. A lot of pressures. And then TJ Lang, man, listen. A personal foul penalty. He's racking up these penalties. That personal foul penalty was big. We had a couple of boneheaded, 15-yard variety penalties that killed drives. And this was a game where we had more field goals than we should have and not enough touchdowns. You can look at penalties as part of the reason as well as ineffective play. Because, if just one of those field goals are touchdowns, instead, we're at a tie ball game and we're in a position to get a game-winning field goal instead of having to get that touchdown. So, I don't have the shout outs and call outs this week. You saw the game. I will say this about Ebron, and hey, hot take, whatever. You drafted this guy knowing he was going to be so-so in blocking, although he's blocked a little bit better this year and drops was an issue. But you neglected all of that because he was supposed to bring a mismatch and a talent and a form of athleticism that was out of this world. So much so you overlooked those things, essential to be a tight end, especially a top 10 pick tight end. That's rare. O.J. Howard, who was one of the best tight end prospects to come out in quite some time, didn't make it. He made it to the 20s because tight ends don't get picked that early. But Ebron was supposed to be so special that despite drop issues and blocking inconsistencies, you still pick him at 10. And Ebron's fast. He's a mismatch. Hasn't had a lot of drops. Today was, kind of like the return of old Ebron. But that mismatch and that athleticism that we're saying we're going to offset those issues, he's not that athletic. He has not been that much of a mismatch. He has not created that many, plays that will offset those horrible drops that he had and that he continues to have. And I know we picked up the 5th-year option, and, it's fine and dandy. I don't want to say off with his head. I don't want to say get rid of him. But when you're talking about, re-upping this guy long term, you do have to really start to consider, is the juice worth the squeeze, man? Because the juice that we're supposedly getting, I don't see, Vernon Davis, Jimmy Graham, Julius Thomas, just complete athletic mismatches in their prime. I don't see it. And so it's concerning that, when a guy is not going to catch some of the easy ones and going to suffer in those areas, and at the same time, he's not creating that much of a mismatch, all right? And we're not talking about Aaron Donald. We're not talking about Odell Beckham. We're talking about the guys on our team. We drafted him. He's here. He's on our team. I'm over all of those things. A few of those key injuries, I think, did come back to bite us this game. Jared Davis really was starting to kind of come into his own that second game there against the Giants. And so the concussion, it stinks. It sucks. And Devonta Freeman, would he have as good a game if Davis was there? I don't know. I mean, it wasn't like he ran a ton up the middle, but Davis covers a lot of ground, and certainly we got him to be stout against the run as well as in coverage. And he's showing those glimpses. So I think he will be back. The other thing, I like what Killebrew did starting, but I like having him available as a big nickel, as a third safety, especially already losing Jared Davis. You would like to see more nickel packages. And so having that flexibility with Tavon Wilson and Glover Quinn at safety to have Killebrew do a little bit more dropping in the box, quasi linebacker, big nickel, and some of our flexibility was taken away. So we have to monitor those injuries, and hopefully they'll be back on the field soon. But all in all, those last series of plays with the whole referee thing, you can look to that as the reason why we lost, in my opinion. At least why we weren't given the chance to try to seal the win. But you got to look at penalties, getting field goals instead of touchdowns, and heck, man, Atlanta punted the ball one time. Now, yes, we did get some turnovers, but we weren't getting turnovers. Those guys were moving the ball up and down the field as much as they wanted. So you got to look at that. Moving on, they do their 24-hour rule. We do a 25-minute rule, man. We talk about win, lose, or draw that game for about 25 minutes, and we move on to the next. The next one is Minnesota. Now, Stephon Diggs looks very good, okay? He had about $180 through the air and some touchdowns. Dalvin Cook looks really good, catching the ball, running the ball. He is their bell cow. They get him involved early and often. So their offense, with an improved running game this year, does look just like that, improved. The defense still, I think, they haven't really shown. I'm scared of the Vikings defense. All right, they get after the quarterback, and that left side of the line is worrisome, man. With Greg Robinson and whoever you want to put at left tackle, Escrine, whatever that dude is, Joe Dahl, or you know what I mean. Like, it scares me. So if I'm going from a prediction standpoint, I think we can narrowly escape this game, similar to how we played them last year. And so I'm gonna give us the narrow win. I'm gonna give us a 20-17 victory. Prove me wrong. Hopefully that is the case. But Minnesota brings some things we have to keep in mind, man. Kyle Rudolph is another guy you have to worry about. Steph Diggs, Dalvin Cook, and like I said, the defense. I'm still worried about your Everson Griffins and your Harrison Smiths. They have a very good defense. So we have to wait and see what happens. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I kind of have more to say, but my voice is fading by the second. A lot of screaming at Ford Field, a lot of screaming, here on this podcast. I'm getting out of here, all right? You can find me, as always, on Twitter at Jerry Mallory NFL, Pride of Detroit, and as always, every Monday right here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Thanks for listening. I'm out of here. It's time for some lemon honey tea, and hopefully I can get my voice back in a few days. But until then, appreciate the listen, and we'll see you next Monday right here on the Hindsight 20 podcast.